Maybe you remember this scene where Andy Dufresne, he's doing work duty, and there's this psychotic prison guard and who's always threatens the prisoners. And there's this moment where he just turns around. He hears the security guard, the prison guard, talking about a tax problem. He's like facing this big tax problem. And Andy Dufresne takes a huge risk and he turns around and he says, "Do you trust your wife?" And the prison guard goes crazy, of course, like, "What did you say?" He says, do you trust your wife?" And he grabs him, he holds him over the edge of the building, he's about to throw him off the top of this building until he hears that Andy Dufresne is actually talking about a tax strategy. And that brings us to the Spousal Lifetime Access Trust, the SLAT. So that's where this ties back together. Do you trust your wife or do you trust your husband? And if you do, well, I have a tool for you. The strategy number 2, a spousal lifetime access trust. One spouse, a husband or wife, sets up an irrevocable trust for the other spouse using up his or her $12.92 million exemption. It has to be their separate property assets. So if it's community property assets, you ideally want to separate them out right before you do this. Or if you have separate assets, you can already do that. So let's say a husband wants to protect assets for his kids and for his wife. Before that exemption drops, he says, "Hey, IRS, I'm creating this irrevocable spousal lifetime access trust. I'm using up my $12.92 million in exemption, and I'm putting in this trust for my wife." Now, there's a risk. If the wife leaves, husband can't get it back. He has made an irrevocable gift for her benefit. But here's the benefit of this for the family. It future-proofs your plan. 1, you've locked in the full $12.92 million, and 2, you've taken future growth out of the estate because you've used up the exemption. But let's say the husband lives another 5-10 years and the value of the assets in that trust grow from 12 million to 15 or 20 million. All of it is protected from estate taxes because he's essentially maximized the amount he's protected and frozen future growth out of the estate for future estate tax exposure. If you use a 12.92 million exemption and the estate, let's assume it's just, that's all that happens. You just use the 12.92 million, put it in the SLAT, and then God forbid someone passes away the next year, January 2nd, 2026, after the exemption drops to 7 million, you're saving a minimum of $2.4 million. And it's still in the spousal estate, right? It's not all to the kids or anything like that. So let's just give an example of how this might work. So let's compare Fred and Wilma versus Homer and Marge. So you may know Fred and Wilma from the Flintstones, and obviously Homer and Marge from The Simpsons. Let's say they both, from their royalties from their TV shows, they have large estates between the two of them. They each have $17.92 million estates in 2023. Fred and Wilma, they take steps before the exemption drops, and they create a SLAT. Fred creates a spousal lifetime access trust for Wilma, uses the 12.92 million, puts it in the SLAT. Homer and Marge, obviously Homer doesn't plan, right? He just wants donuts. So they don't plan. They have the same size estate. Both couples live another 10 years and their estates grow. They invest well, they get more royalties, their estates grow to $30 million each. What happens? What's the difference? So let's just illustrate this. Let's say you don't use strategy number 2. Homer and Marge didn't plan for estate taxes, but they invest well. Their assets go to $30 million. The exemption drops to $7 million. When they pass away, each of them can only protect $7 million. So you add that together, $14 million protected. But hey, that leaves $16 million of their $30 million estate exposed to a 40% tax. Over $5.6 million lost to the IRS in taxes. Their children say, "Hey, look, Bart and Lisa and Maggie are going to be fine with that $24.4 million. That's over $5 million lost to the IRS. Fred and Wilma, on the other hand, if all they do is set up the Spousal Lifetime Access Trust, well, what happened? So they had a $17.92 million estate, $12.92 million went into the SLAT, $5 million left out of it. They didn't do any planning for that. So let's say the value of the assets in the Spousal Lifetime Access Trust grows to $20 million. Assets outside of the SLAT grow to $10 million. So that's totally unprotected. The exemption, same as what Homer and Marge faced, drops to $7 million per person. They save $4.4 million in estate taxes because they protected a full $20 million. Remember, the SLAT protects $12.92 million today, but as those assets grow in value, it's all out of your estate. It's not touched by estate taxes. So even if that grows to 20 million or 30 million, untouched by estate taxes when the parent passes away. Then it goes to the children, tax-free. Now there's some of their estate is exposed to taxes because they didn't take other steps to protect that. But again, $4.4 million saved. Just want to emphasize the power of that. And keep in mind, if you're saving $4.4 million in taxes, that's like earning $6 or $7 million. So to save $4.4 million for your family is in essence earning another $6 or $7 million. So just to show the power of estate and gift tax planning. So you can contact us at gilfix.com, 650-493-8070. I hope everybody's staying safe, sane, and healthy.